Okay, well, we'll call the meeting to order of SCTA RCPA for the Planning Advisory Committee. And we'll begin with introductions. Let's start with introductions on Zoom. It looks like we have a few folks on there. Owen, do you want to start?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Owen Christopherson with SMART.
Thank you. Looks like we might have Jessica Jones.
Morning, everybody. Jessica Jones, Deputy Director for City of Santa Rosa.
Do we have anybody? Let's see, SCTA staff. Do you want to go through Adam?
Yes,
Oh, you're here.
Yep.
I was like, oh, I see your name on there too.
Raphael.
Steph's on, and then we also have Raphael Miranda from the city of Cloverdale.
Oh, okay. Raphael's
And
on
the
there.
phone number had just logged in.
Okay. Raphael, you want to go? Down there.
Good morning. Sorry, I missed. What are we doing? Just introductions. Hi, it's Rafael from City of Cloverdale.
Thank you. And then we have Stephanie.
That's me.
Okay. Oh, you're there too. Okay. Do we have anybody else?
And you see
Karen just-
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Karen Shimizu with the City of Petaluma.
Good morning. Okay. Anybody else?
Logging.
I know. It keeps changing every second.
And I'll just announce Margot Acanias from SCTA RCPA and Amy, which I think might be Amy Nicholson from the city of Santa Rosa, have just logged in.
Awesome. Thank you.
That is
so
all I
much.
see on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you. All right, then we'll go around the room. Sheila, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm Sheila Walski, City Planner, City of Santa Rosa.
Shan, MTC.
Adam. Yeah, SCTA, RCPA.
Tanya Narath, SCTA RCPA.
Chris Barney, SCTA RCPA.
Helen McDowell, City of Healdsburg.
John Jay, City of Sebastopol.
Scott Orr, County of Sonoma.
Will Lyons, County of Sonoma.
Jennifer Gates, City of Sonoma.
Steph Britt, SCTA RCPA.
Okay.
And Jim Nichols, SCTA RCPA.
All right, good morning, everybody. All right, moving on to our administrative actions. It looks like we can't take actions on the meeting notes or the adoption of the agenda today. Chris has a 2025 discussion topics and work plan.
Yeah. So I attached to the agenda packet a list of topics that we discussed over 2024. And there was a lot on the list. So, you know, I think we should all kind of be happy about, you know, the topics we were able to work through and the work that was able to be completed as part of this meeting. So, you know, we covered a lot of housing topics, climate protection, the comprehensive transportation plan for SCTA, data and reporting, travel demand modeling, transit, active transportation, parking, Vision Zero, VMT, community-based transportation plans, many regional items, grant administration and coordination. So there are a lot of different topics on there. I encourage you to take a look and, you know, let me know if you want to know more about any of those topics, but I just wanted to do a brief check-in and see if there are any, you know, topics that you'd like to prioritize for 2025. So I included what we discussed last year just to kind of prime the pump and, you know, give you some ideas of things we could continue to work on. So we don't need to discuss this at length today, but, you know, I'd be happy to take any recommendations now and we can definitely talk about this more going forward, or please reach out and, you know, we can get kind of a list of topics going for next year. I'm happy to take any recommendations off the top of your head right now.
Okay. Does anybody have any recommendations for Chris? All right.
Great.
We'll think about it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, moving on to our first discussion item today, the IRA Elective Pay Program from Tanya with RCPA.
Good morning. Thank you. And Drew's going to get a presentation up. So this is a funding opportunity that is available to local governments as well as nonprofit organizations. But for today's focus, it's just going to be on local government. And I'm planning to give this same presentation to our technical advisory committee and probably bring it to our board in February. But we just wanted to make sure that we shared this information with all of our committees. And so, get this going. So first of all, I have to do the disclaimers and say that I myself am not an expert in elective pay, but it's a topic that I'm really interested in because I think it's a huge opportunity for our jurisdictions and agencies to help support our clean energy projects. And so far, I have not heard of many people, at least in Sonoma County, who are actively pursuing this. I know the County of Sonoma has a group that's looking into applying for elective pay for some of its projects. But again, I think it's a huge opportunity that I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of. And it turns out there are a lot of resources available for us online in various forms. And so the materials in this presentation have been adapted from materials provided by an organization called the Lawyers for Good Government. And I'll include some more links later in the presentation to their materials. Also, just the legal disclaimer that, I am not a legal it's not legal advice, and RCPA, SCTA is not providing legal advice, and all of these materials are for informational purposes only. So what is elective pay? In its simplest form, it basically is a way for local governments and other entities like nonprofits who don't typically pay taxes to be able to access the tax credits that are available to corporations, individuals, depending on the program. And so this is a process that your organization can go through to get these tax credits that can help fund and pay for your clean energy projects. And so the highlights of the program, and this is something I didn't realize, is that the tax credits account for about 70% of the Inflation Reduction Act funding. So there are concerns today with the results of the election about the fate of some of the programs within the Inflation Reduction Act, like the grant programs. But these tax credits are written into the tax code and they are available to us now and at least into the near future. And so it's definitely something that we want to take advantage of. They're uncapped, so unlike grant programs that have a certain amount of funding available, you can apply for as many tax credits as you want, and there isn't a limit to that. They cover a diverse set of technologies, and there's actually a set of adder incentives that you can go after that would increase the amount of tax credit that you get, depending on how you choose to structure your project. So in some cases, you can expect reimbursement of up to 70% if you're able to take advantage of all of those bonus adders. So here are a couple of examples of common project types in the public sector. And there's actually 12 tax credits. So there's more than I've shown here, but these are the ones that most often apply to the public sector. So in section 30C, the alternative fuel refueling property projects, examples of that would be EV infrastructure projects or placements in non-urban or low income areas. Under section 45W, EV fleet transition, which I know our local fleets are in the process of transitioning to electric. So this could help support those programs. Other types of government vehicles, school buses, public transit, et cetera. So that's a good source of funding there. And then there's the two tax credits, the renewable electricity production tax credit and the energy investment tax credit. And you can see there that those are available to support projects like microgrids, solar, geothermal, HVAC. So some of the municipal investments that are being made could qualify for these tax credits. So a very high level overview of the process. There's a requirement to pre-file. So this process does require advanced planning and determination of which of the projects that your jurisdiction is working on could qualify for these different tax credits. And there's a requirement that you pre-file with the IRS to let them know these are the projects that we're planning to put into service and apply for tax credits. And you'll get a unique registration number through that process. Then there's the filing itself. And there's the variety, various tax forms depending on the tax credit that you're going after. Again, a lot more detail online about all of this and the forms that are required. And then there's a schedule that I'll share on the next slide. in terms of when you put your project into service and then the deadline to file for a tax credit for that particular project. And then you receive your money. So the IRS will make the payment after review of the filing, and they're saying it's likely more than a year after the project is placed into service or the money is spent. So obviously there's a lot more detail behind this, but that's the high level process. And then a little bit more about the recommended steps. So, first figure out when is your project expected to be complete, and so what tax or calendar year does that fall into? Using the pre-filing portal for all your projects, and there's some advice about the timing, and then the required forms, and lastly, you get paid. And it's not quite as simple as that, but you get the feeling of the high level steps. And then here's a bit more about the filing deadlines. So really, I think for our projects in Sonoma County, we'd be looking at, depending on, again, if you want to file for a calendar year, which would be January 2024 to December, which would mean you'd have a project completed in that timeline. Your first filing deadline would be May 15th of 2025. So if you have projects that are going into service in this time frame and you want to use the calendar year, you could pursue a tax credit. And then if you're on a fiscal tax year, so July 24 to June 2025, and that project was completed in August, for example, then your first filing deadline would be a little less than a year from now, so November 15th of 2025, and you could request an extension until May 15th, 2026. And just a note that those request forms have to be submitted to the IRS by the original tax filing date. So now I'll just mention briefly the resources that are available. As I said earlier, there's almost an overwhelming number of resources. So this Clean Energy Tax Navigator is a way that you can walk through and understand which of your projects could qualify and for which tax credit. So it's a kind of step-by-step process that you can walk through, and it would also connect you with resources that could support your application. So I've got the link there. And then another set of resources that I thought could be helpful is there's some worksheets that have been put together for you to start inventory and kind of speccing out your projects, whether they be on the EV side for EV purchases like fleet vehicles or EV charging infrastructure, and then for the ITC tax credits, and then a tool that can help you determine if your project fits into the categories that are being required for that tax credit. And we'll share these slides with all of you. And then a couple more Lawyers for Good Government resources. So there's the Elective Pay and IRA Tax Incentive Resources page, which does have fact sheets. It has links to a variety of different webinars and presentations that have been given. And then I wanted to call out specifically this second one, which is the IRA Credits Direct Pay in the 2024 elections. And this is a fairly recent briefing that the Lawyers for Good Government has distributed with kind of their take on the impact of the elections and the tax credits. And just a brief summary of that, what they're saying is that projects that you complete in 2024 will not be affected because that's, it's in the tax code and you're due those credits. They are thinking that projects completed in 2025 will likely be okay, that it's going to take some time. If there are changes to the tax code that would impact this, it will take some time. And so your projects in 2025 can most likely qualify. And then it's the projects beyond 2025 that it's hard to know, what changes might take place that would make that not a viable option for your jurisdictions. The tax code currently, I believe, has these credits available up through 2032, and hopefully that will remain the case. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention that based on some feedback that we've received from our members and partners, we are working with colleagues in the Santa Clara County Office of Sustainability and Resilience and the Bay Area Regional Energy Network to organize a workshop for Bay Area staff where we're going to have someone give a little bit more detailed overview of elective pay than I've provided here today. And then probably more helpful, we're putting together a panel of staff from a variety of locations who've actually been through the process and can share their lessons learned, issues they've run into, best practices, and have some discussion that would, I think, be helpful to anyone in our county who's wanting to do this, and hopefully also help make connections that if you're going through the process and you get stuck and you want to talk to a colleague, you'll have a network of resources that you could connect with. Though I did want to mention on the target audience, one of the things that I've heard a couple times in presentations that I've watched is the importance of figuring out who your team is when you want to go through this process. And that typically a successful elective pay team consists of the individual who's managing the energy project or program, the clean energy project, your finance director and legal counsel, and then also having access to tax advice. Many jurisdictions, since you haven't had to pay taxes or file for taxes, you don't necessarily have that expertise in-house. And so there's been a note that in some cases, jurisdictions have actually had to go outside to get tax advice because it's not something that they have in-house. So that was a learning, for me at least, that you actually need a team to go through this process. So I think that was all I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm happy to answer or try to answer any questions that you might have. And again, really want to point you to the resources links because there's a lot of great information there. So I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Tanya. I appreciate it. Does anybody in the room here have questions for Tanya? Then we can move to Zoom.
I have one. Is the same information being presented to kind of the equivalent of like the Public Works?
We're going to present it to the Technical Advisory Committee. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions here in the room? Sheila?
I have a little question for you. In your massive review of this, it mentions alternative fuels. I'm working on something right now. Do you know if liquid petroleum gas is included?
I don't know, but yeah, I'm sure we could find an
Okay.
answer for you. In one of these resources, it does give more detail. So
Okay,
yeah.
great. Thanks, Tanya.
Okay, anybody else? All right, anybody on Zoom have any questions? Okay, all right. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
All right, moving on to the next item, Sonoma County Travel Model Existing Land Use Update and 2050 Forecast from Adam Garcia.
All right, thank you. So today I'm going to be giving just a brief overview on something hopefully, I think we've touched base with all the jurisdictions now. As part of our update to our Sonoma County travel model, we're changing our base land use year from 2019 to 2023. So we've been keeping track as best we can of the developments that have been happening. So we're really trying to look at what's kind of finalized or has some type of certificate of occupancy kind of at the end of 2023. And so we're, I think, in good standing just in talking with all the different jurisdictions. Jennifer, I know we talked about this a while back, so we can circle back to that if you want.
I'm ready for you now.
Okay,
My
perfect.
staff. So.
All right.
I put them to work.
Great. Well, let's check in the new year. So yeah, so there's been a lot of great work on that. There's also another aspect around the actual travel network. So that is kind of looking at changes to kind of the main arterials that we're really looking at, but changes to speed limit, to number of lanes that would affect the potential travel behavior. So I know that's more of an item for TAC. So we are trying to work with all of those equivalent staff, the engineers as well on this topic, while working kind of focused on the land use side of things with PAC. So let's see. I think, so what I wanted to be able to do is just give you a quick presentation that is very high level. So it's just really looking across the whole county. There's how many TAZs?
800.
800 TAZs. So it's quite detailed, but one of the things that we're going to be hopefully making available as soon as possible is online information for this through ArcGIS online. So for the kind of 800 TAZs and then the model network, you'll actually be able to zoom in and get a lot of the same information that is in these overwhelming spreadsheets, or if you're Sonoma County or Santa Rosa, too many PDFs to have to review. So there's a lot of, those hopefully should be available either today or early or possibly tomorrow. So let's see, with that, I'm going to just share my screen. Okay, so really what we're just looking at today is just kind of that delta, the change from 2019 to 2023. So not the total existing conditions, which is kind of what we're looking at in our review. So in this case, we're just kind of seeing where have areas around the different land uses changed most significantly. So in terms of recreation, so that's parks, there hasn't really been much that we've found. I know in our review, there's some in Petaluma that we need to add, but if you have any parks that have been added during that time, I think we need to add those to our network. I'm sorry, to our land use table. For institutional, so this might be some type of kind of more civic buildings, not necessarily schools per se. There has been some growth around the county for that. There hasn't been any hospital growth though. And there's one other one I'm trying to remember that hasn't grown either, but come to me. So in terms of warehouse, there's been a scattering of warehouse development. The light industrial also, I think we need to take another look at this. This includes wineries also. So I know there has been a number of wineries, and that's primarily the county development in those areas. So we'll be following up on that. Let's see, for heavy industrial, not much, just a little bit south in southern Cloverdale. Shopping center, I think just kind of one being completed, finished in Petaluma. For a strip commercial, a bit more around the county. Some limited office development. Hotel development has definitely been happening during that time. And I should say that with the PowerPoint that we'll be sharing, I need to clean up a few of the slides. This was a bit of a rush, but so in terms of hotel, then the legend down there is actually in terms of rooms. The other numbers have been in thousands of square feet, but those will be updated in the shared presentation. And then some senior housing development, quite a bit of multifamily development, as well as, yeah, single family housing. So some of the darker areas, many of those might be from fire rebuilds. I'd have to look into that. This one kind of raised an eyebrow for me, but I have to double check that. So let's see, and then this is the model network. So again, we can provide all of this data. This will be one that you can zoom in and get various levels of information that might have changed. So in terms of number of lanes or speed limits specifically, as you zoom in, you can obviously see those in more detail, but that'll be what we'll be working with the TAC to make sure is updated. All right, with that, I'll see if there's any questions or comments, thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Adam. I know you've been working really hard on that, so we appreciate the presentation. Does anybody here in the room have any questions?
On the wineries being light industrial, is that specifically like if it's happening in an industrial park, or does that also count like a winery on ag land?
A winery on ag land as well.
All right, anybody else?
I have a
Yeah.
quick question. Adam, can you give just a really high level update on the schedule for updating the forecasts as well, looking out?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So for the forecast, this will be looking at kind of what the projection is for going from 2040 to 2050. So we'll be making those updates in the early new year, so January, February. The main places where that'll change will be if there's been a specific plan update during that time, kind of at the end of 2019, or if you had a general plan update. Those are kind of going to be the major drivers of changing that that forecast year. If your general plan hasn't changed, then it's likely that those forecast numbers are going to be consistent unless there's some other local planning process that might have changed that. So yeah.
Can you say that again? Baseline is 19?
So yeah, there's the 2019 baseline that we have that we're updating to 2023. And then there's also then the forecast, and the forecast, we had an outlook year for 2040, which will be shifting to 2050.
Using 2019.
Using the 2040 data that we had
Okay.
for a previous forecast. So that's kind of showing what's the maximum general plan build out for these different TAS areas. And so if those have increased by some specific plan or general plan update since the end of 2019, then we would want to make sure that those are reflected in the 2050 forecast update.
Yeah, I think so.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
to get to the 2050, I'm using, if you used a certain year to get the 2040, but
Mm-hmm.
any change that has happened between 2019 and 2023. So like all of us adopted housing elements.
Right.
So that's our general plan change. That would be incorporated into that 2050 forecast.
Not necessarily I think so anything that happened from 2019 to 2023 would go into our existing conditions numbers, right? For the model. The 2040 numbers are more based off your general plan build out. So I'm not sure if your housing element update would change your general plan build out. It would just say, these are the housing units we've built to start to reach out, build out, but the actual build out would probably be much higher.
It just depends, I think, on each community, if they change their land use.
Right,
with the
exactly.
Housing element.
Yeah.
And Jennifer, just for clarification, a lot of the housing elements actually look at capacity as well, right? So if that capacity is changed, that's where the housing element will need to be
Right.
rolled in. Yeah,
that's true.
Okay, anybody on Zoom? Okay, not seeing any hands. So let's move on to the next item. Next item is a regional update, TOC policy and climate program implementation grants discussion. Chris, will you?
Yeah, so
lead
I
us with
put
that?
this on the agenda, and Ada, please weigh in with any new information, but we just wanted to have a quick check-in on the transit-oriented communities policy, and I know a lot of you submitted applications for technical assistance, so just wanted to get a quick update on who applied for both the planning side, and there's a climate implementation side as well. So just do a quick roundtable to see who's applied. And then it sounds like MTC ABAG staff will be able to attend our January housing meeting to talk about next steps for TOC policy. So maybe we can start with Healdsburg.
Sure.
Did you apply?
Sure. I don't know if the application is in, but I think it was being worked on.
Okay.
A planning application?
I was not part of it. But I think they were, I'm not positive. You did? Okay.
Okay. How about Sebastopol?
We did not.
Okay.
It's a little outside of the kind of smart corridor and stuff
Yeah.
like that, so.
The county.
Ada, did we? Yes.
Yeah, just ask, let's ask Ada.
Yeah, maybe. Ada, would you be willing to? Maybe that's a better place to start.
Disproportionate number of applications from Sonoma.
Okay,
And I can kind of tell you the specifics afterwards, maybe.
okay, great.
Because I think we weren't sharing it until we made the staff report.
Got it, okay.
We were wildly oversubscribed
Yeah.
in the housing and planning categories. And I guess, yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to say much more. at
Okay.
this moment.
That's good information. Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's an interesting question as we're looking at it, though. I think the SMART really changed people's planning, kind of combined with the TOC, there's a different opportunity than there might have been. And so, you know, the reason for more applications than we might have had in the past is we can all see the opportunities that SMART Train's kind of presenting.
Oh, definitely.
So through the chair, can I
Yeah.
jump in?
Yeah.
So, were the general asks to change zoning or was it more
Yeah, so
policy? Okay,
we only had planning funding for rezoning.
Got it.
Essentially, it was for rezoning or any kind of changes you needed to make to address TOC policies. My category was specifically the planning stuff. There were a couple of full plan kind of applications, but a lot of it was just making these technical changes, which are significant and will require having gone through your housing elements and some people doing general plan updates, reopening it and the public process, right, in some communities is going to be very, very difficult. So
Yeah.
There's a lot of support and commitment to helping jurisdictions do that process. And kind of given the timing, I think the conversation next month is an important one for you all, like if it isn't working, like to really think about how you want to talk to the commission early on before the decisions get made, and inform the decision-making process about what it will take to get to TOC compliance. Because it's ambitious, right? It's ambitious.
fantastic. So more,
Sorry,
more.
that was big.
No, that's more next
But I'm
month.
happy to support you if you go around the room.
Yeah, maybe we can do that. So something from the county. I know Jennifer, Sonoma's off the corridor, but
Yes, we are. I was trying to get my public works to do the climate, but I failed.
okay. Santa Rosa, do you know if you applied?
Yes, we did. And I want to thank Ada and all of her staff. Everyone was amazing. I think we were corresponding up to the application time of 4 o'clock. So you guys have been great.
I'm glad.
And so we're looking forward to receiving grant funding.
All right, so on Zoom, it looks like we have Petaluma and Cloverdale as well.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure. I'm figuring Petaluma applied, but yeah, I see Ada nodding her head. Yeah, because we're doing some customer trade development. So yes, but I need to circle around with the team on that.
And Cloverdale did not apply.
And it's also just good to hear if the process is working or not working too, right? I mean, so that kind of feedback is useful for us. We tried to simplify the application, but then it got too much guessing game for people, I think, in some ways. And then also office hours, like all of that process is really, we're developing it. So if it works, I mean, it was great to hear it worked for Santa Rosa.
Yeah, I think just the availability and responsiveness of your team definitely works. So, you know, regardless of anything else, like you guys are doing everything you can to be available. That's appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then awards are February, is that?
Awards will be, we're going to commission in the February commission meeting, so I think it's mid-February. I think there's some follow-up calls that'll happen, you know, also following up if people are going to be able to do resolutions. Most people didn't submit resolutions with their application. But yeah, I mean, we're really trying to get as many people into the, you know, into the next round so that your OPEC 4 funding isn't jeopardized. So I think it's really trying to figure out what we can fund, how we can get as many people in there. I think there's a staff commitment, which may mean follow-up calls saying if we're not able to fully fund, can your project still go forward?
Great. So more next month.
February, sorry. Oh, yeah,
No,
the
the
TOC
discussion.
conversation. Yeah, the TOC conversation, I think, is an important one, just as a community to have and have a shared.
And that's focused about what it means to comply, right? That's the conversation. Is that
It'll be, it's kind of like how we're going to interpret comply.
Yeah.
The commission's decision around comply. We've presented kind of this idea of like trying, like sincerely, like on the way, and then in compliance. And then how it relates to how much OVAC 4 funding you'll have access to if you're not in compliance or if you're in partial compliance. So, and then the timelines around that, right? So I think that's the part of if what works, what concerns you have is super useful to kind of give feedback, not just to Jillian, but to the commission.
thank you.
Okay, anything else, Chris?
No.
Okay. All right, next item is community-based transportation plans progress report from STEP.
Share my screen. Oh, if Zoom would get out of the way, I could turn it into presentation mode. There we go. Okay, so we have been working, Chris and I, with Fern Pierce on a community-based transportation plan for South Santa Rosa and Rohnert Park. A little bit about what a CBTP is. It is a, Zoom, get out of my way. Community-based transportation plan brings local residents and community organizations and planning agencies together to improve mobility options for low-income communities. So what we're working with Fern Pierce with is set up a demographic analysis, speak to community members to get a lot of their feedback and prioritize their transportation needs, gaps, and identify what the barriers are. Then develop strategies to address these gaps and look for possible funding sources so we can fill those gaps and work with stakeholders to achieve this. We have done this in the past. Oh no, there we go. And we have done this for Healdsburg, the Lower Russian River area, Santa Rosa, Roseland area, and the Springs. And this is what the South Santa Rosa study area is. And we're close to Taylor Mountain, all around here, Santa Rosa Avenue. It's pretty high traffic, so we're identifying ways to address the speed and reach the community, which is a lot of people are coming into the area, but may not be residents in that area or work in that area. So we're trying to identify the correct people to speak to. For Central Rohnert Park, we are in this area. Probably possible to note is that the golf course can be a barrier to cross across town. And then additionally, we're looking into the Copeland Creek overcrossing and get some feedback there. And we have a technical advisory committee that has been meeting. Some of you all here are part of this committee. In October, we met, we did a draft baseline conditions and related plans overview. We started developing an outreach strategy and looked at our baseline conditions, provided some more feedback. And now we're looking into February where we will start doing our final needs assessment summaries and provide input for focus groups, pop up, and start really looking into our outreach strategy, which is coming up in the spring. And then for CRC, we currently have 5 members from South Santa Rosa area and 3 from Central Rohnert Park. Together, they encompass these representative sections of our community. And there may be more members, but we're still working on getting it solid. And the first meeting will be mid-January with them. And then our engagement approach is fast approaching for spring. We have phase 1 and phase 2. For phase one, we're going to focus on focus groups, pun intended, and pop-up events, and we will join existing meetings to get some more feedback. For phase two, during the summer, we will have a community transportation resource fair. We'll do some budgeting exercises with the community to process trade-offs and how to prioritize the projects we're doing. And we will join some more existing meetings. And if the next slide comes up, there we go. And if you have any questions for me, we will be meeting quite a bit in the future, but any more feedback on what we should focus on in these study areas is definitely welcome.
Thank you, Steph. Does anybody have any questions for Steph? Here in the room or on Zoom?
All right.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, and then next item is standing updates. So for this one, since we have multiple people from other jurisdictions, maybe we should start like north to south-ish, maybe starting with the county.
You know,
We're all it's true. We're all encompassed.
I'd say that the main update that I have is I hope that no one has a project that needs a well. You're not gonna get one for a while, so. The county is following a court order to not issue any new water wells. As of yesterday. So we will be requesting a stay so that we can get back to that. But there's a cascade of impacts relating to housing, agriculture, and a bunch of things. So we are still issuing emergency well permits. But I'm sure there'll be more information coming out about all of that in the news and from the county soon. So that's really the only update that I have.
The big one. All right, let's go to Cloverdale.
I guess the couple updates for Cloverdale, we are getting close to completing our active transportation plan, and have to go back to the council one more time, I believe, for adoption. And also we're I hope we're getting close to completing our circulation element update of our general plan. We were pretty close, and then a new law came out. It was, I think, AB 98 was about like warehousing, like transportation routes for that, and cities basically need to update their circulation elements by like January 2028. So we got a new scope of work that's basically just that law increased we were just about done, and now we have to pay like another $40,000 to complete that work. So we're kind of deciding whether we want to do that now or not. And, like I said, we got to do it within the next 3 years if we don't do it now anyway. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of the two things for Cloverdale right now for the group.
Okay, thank you. I can go for Healdsburg. We don't have a ton. We're just pretty much maintaining our current larger projects that we're working on. We're doing a lot of land use code updates coming up, and we were slowing down, and then last week we got a flurry of projects. So we'll see how that goes. All right, and I don't think there's anyone here from Windsor, so then it would move down to Santa Rosa.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Our general plan update EIR comment period is closed. So now we're working toward adoption of the general plan and EIR for that, probably in first quarter 2025. Continuing our housing element implementation work and working with county jurisdictions on the hazard mitigation plan. Couple projects to note. One, the Cannery project, which is 129 affordable units. It's in one of our SB 35 projects. That one is looking at leasing up in January. So we should have a lot more people close to the smart station, and also existing bus routes. And I keep updating on this, but they were in environmental, the former community hospital, Sutter Hospital on the hill on Cheney. That's now Woodlands at Sinead. So a scoping meeting for that project will be scheduled for January if anyone's interested in attending. And we know a lot of folks are interested in that project. We have a notification and a dedicated project site for that. So anytime anything comes up, you'll be notified. So that's it from Santa Rosa.
Okay, thanks, Sheila. Sebastopol?
Sure. So we do have also our active transportation plan going to city council on January 21st for final adoption. The other big news is we did hire a community development director for Sebastopol. So we have a person full-time in that role. As meetings go forward, I think Emmy will kind of join in with us here, and then we might switch back and forth between her and I as far as participation goes. And we are also working on our sustainable transportation grant that we got through Caltrans. We had our first public workshop in November. We had about over 100 people show up to provide input, kind of a Main Street corridor study. So I'm happy to see the amount of public input so far in that project, and working on housing element implementation is never ending. So that's it for Sebastopol.
Thank you. I don't see anyone from Roner Park. Petaluma?
Yes, good morning. So I'm sure everyone is aware, we're looking very forward to the grand opening of the Petaluma North Station, the Smart Station. They're having a grand opening celebration on January 10th. And directly adjacent to that, we've been working with a developer, Danco, and they actually received tax credits for their project. So we anticipate they will be starting construction on 131 units affordable housing project, which will be directly adjacent to the station. And that will include 33 units of permanent supportive housing. So we're pretty excited about bringing that into our housing portfolio. And part of what made that project work was the city worked with Danco and Smart. We were awarded $30 million affordable housing sustainable communities grant. So team's been working long and hard on that area. It's going to be really, really exciting project to see both of those happening within Petaluma. That's it.
Awesome, thank you. That sounds exciting. And Sonoma?
Last night, city council introduced an ordinance to update our SB 9 ordinance. So I was in the middle of doing that when SB 450 got approved. So that kind of helped fix that. So that was a long process. Got that one done. We are in the midst of looking at streamlining a lot of things, including our design review process. And we also are in the middle of the general plan. So we've had lots of meetings. We're gonna have one more in January with the community to go over the direction that we are moving forward with from city council. And we will actually be allowing up to 4 units regardless of density in our single family zones. With the caveat being that I have to get the design standards good to go before the adoption. But basically we already have some examples in town of triplexes and quads that look like single family homes. And so that's the goal, is to create development standards to look like that, to continue that feel. And then we will also be looking at changing some zoning and then doing an affordable housing overlay to allow by right housing if you meet a certain threshold of affordable units. So, and then we have one set of parcels left for wine production, but wine production actually isn't occurring anymore. So we're looking at modifying that zoning area to allow a mix of uses. So lots of changes happening in our general plan. So once we finish that meeting, we'll go into the EIR, start the EIR drafting and drafting the actual text document. So hopefully this time next year, we'll be in meetings and getting approvals. Other than that, you know, ATP and all the other normal things that we do on a daily basis. So that's the highlight.
All right, great, thank you. Yes, Sheila.
Okay, I'm just curious about your comment, wine production isn't happening. Based on what? Is it market conditions or something else?
So it's Sebastiani Winery. Fully purchased it a few years ago, and they still use the wine tasting and things like that, but my understanding is it's not in full wine production mode like it was previously. And so the idea is just to explore options. So we would still allow wine production and agriculture and all the wine aspects that were currently under that zone. But we're expanding opportunities, including housing.
Okay, any updates from SCTA or Ada, anything?
So can I highlight the EPC decision?
Yeah.
So this is.
I was wondering if you were gonna.
Yeah.
Calling out.
Do you want to take it? Okay, because it is an MTC thing. So so there was a little bit of back and forth on equity priority communities. I believe we discussed this last year at the PAC at some point. And, you know, talking about, you know, using new data to identify equity priority communities. So MTC actually did some analysis, and there were quite a few EPCs that were dropping off in Sonoma County, including the Russian River area, parts of Santa Rosa that had showed up before, and portions of Rohnert Park that are included in that community-based transportation planning area. So there are a lot of comments back and forth on, you know, the need for a lot of these communities that had been identified in the past to continue to be prioritized as equity areas. So MTC came out with a recommendation to consider the areas identified in the last cycle and the new cycle, both as equity priority communities. So yeah, I can share the map really quick, or
Sure.
Just to show kind of how that is, what that looks like. Where's my Zoom? There we go. So let me, oh, Steph, I'm sharing your struggle on fighting with Zoom too. So let me try and zoom in here. So you can see the light purple areas are the older EPCs that were going to drop off. So you can see the Russian River area and, you know, quite a few different areas in Santa Rosa and Rohnert Park. And then the purple areas are the areas that carried over or that were newly identified. So we're very grateful to MTC for making that decision. You know, we recognize there's a lot of need in these areas that we're dropping off. So so yeah, this map will be out in the wild, and all of those will be considered as EPCs going forward. So yeah, happy to share that update.
Thank you.
And maybe just reminded me, we're looking at the objective design standards. We had MTC, the RETA program had developed 2 sets of information, one for SB9, but because of kind of legal changes, we're going to have, I'm hoping we can get some funding to update that. And then we're also looking at the multifamily objective design standards, that kind of a different format, but just a little bit of handbook that people could refer to. And so if you have any comments on, if you like looked at it and shut it and said no, or what, any comments you have on either of those, we'll be talking about it at the Housing Collaborative, and next month doing a survey. So, but if there's anything you all are working on that we could have done that would have been more helpful, would really appreciate those comments. And then if you're looking at it into your next year of work that you're having to do and they don't work for you, let me know.
Okay, thank you. Are there any updates from anybody that I might have missed on Zoom? Raise your hand.
Yeah, they're smart if Owen wants to get.
Okay. Oh, there he is.
Sure, yeah, we are, as Karen mentioned, we are full speed ahead on our new Petaluma North Station We have been very much challenged by the the kind of rain events and the storms recently. We had a system closure this past weekend that we had to extend into Monday, but we are still on track for that opening in January, and of course the Windsor station coming later in the spring. We also just released a final draft of the SMART strategic plan that was adopted by our board of directors yesterday. I don't think it's quite on our website yet, but that updated draft was in the board packet and will be on our website soon for review. It's a strategic plan as a kind of a 5-year plan for SMART. And yeah, I think that's about it. Excited for a new year with new stations.
Thank you. We are too. Okay, and then announcements. Looks like we have election of officers at the February 20th meeting. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so if you can make an effort to be here in person on that day, we would need a quorum to take action. So when I have talked to our current chair, so if no one, he's willing to continue if no one else wants to step in. So yeah.
Okay. And then the SCTA board and planning activities report. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think we covered most of the items on there. I would give an update on our comprehensive transportation plan. So we're working very closely with technical advisory committee. So all of your colleagues in public works and infrastructure on developing the transportation project list. So we had an open call for new transportation projects, which closed at the early December. So we received around 80 new transportation projects that'll end up in the CTP. So we'll work on compiling those and have a draft ready in February to take to the TAC. We could definitely bring that to the PAC as well if there's interest in seeing those transportation projects. So maybe we can agendize that and just get it out so what's going on.
That would be great.
Yeah. And we've also been continuing with our engagement and outreach, being out in the community, talking to folks about their transportation issues. And we have a great promo video for the CTP trying to drive traffic to our survey for the CTP as well. So Ross put that together. It's a great video, and that went out in an email blast yesterday. So if you're interested and you didn't see that, please reach out to us and we can point you towards that. So it's a nice item to share. If you'd like to share that in your newsletters, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. All right, and moving on to the next item, do we have any members of the public that would like to speak on any of our items today? All right, seeing none, that concludes our meeting. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.